Hey y'all, welcome back to New Slang. I'm so glad to have y'all closing down the week listening in. I'm music journalist Thomas Mooney, and this go around I'm joined by singer-songwriter Suzanne Santo. Suzanne released a new album a few short weeks ago called Yard Sale. I just fell in love with the sound that she cultivated on this record. It's dark and it's mysterious, and there's these gorgeous undertones throughout the album. This is going to be maybe a strange comparison or analogy, but bear with me a second. Growing up, did y'all ever do those scratch boards in art class? Basically, you'd color a piece of paper with a vibrant array of crayons, and then you'd paint it black or color over it with black. Then you would carve or scratch away, and you would make a scene or something out of it. I know that we did that a whole bunch as a kid. I always loved how you would have these bright colors shine and shimmering through that darkness. That's really how I kind of feel about this album. There's this dark, brooding canvas, and then there's these swirls of bold and sharp guitars and violin and Suzanne's vocals. Which her vocals, I know that plenty of vocalists, they're shooting to harness that emotional charge within the lyrics of a song. But with her, there's something different. It's like she goes one level deeper. And I think it's because her vocals, while they are crystal clear and they're warm, there's these hints of fragility. You feel like she could break at a moment's notice. And I guess that's what you would call vulnerability. At any rate, it creates this focus that just kind of mutes the outside world. Yard Sale has really been one of my favorite albums to cover this year. In particular, a song like Mercy or Idiot or Island. They've been songs that I've constantly returned to over and over. On this episode, we talk about Yard Sale, that emotional depth within these songs, riding on the road with Hozier this past year, and we close out with some conversation about some of our favorite television series. Today's presenting partner is our pals over at Desert Door Texas Soto. If you've been listening to New Slang for really any amount of time, you'll know that Desert Door is one of my all-time favorite premium, high-quality spirits. If you haven't or aren't sure what exactly a Soto is, I'm going to let you in on a little secret that's going to up the game on your liquor cabinet. For starters, the best reference point that I can point you to is to think about a tequila or a mezcal. Do you feel that Western desert, that Texas ruggedness? Okay, Soto is like that, but a little bit more refined, smooth, and fragrant. It intrigues the palate and offers these hints of vanilla and citrus. There's an earthiness that often sends me right back to my Trans-Pecos and Far West Texas roots. There's plenty to love about Desert Door. For me, it all starts right there. A close second is just how versatile Desert Door really is. You can go full highbrow and experiment with concocting a variety of cocktails that call for muddling fresh fruit, sprigs of thyme, sticks of cinnamon. It's perfect for that world. If you're a little bit more down home, if you've just rolled up the sleeves of your denim Wrangler button-up, it's perfect for that as well. If you're just desiring something that's short and sweet, it hits the mark every time. Desert Door is genuine and authentically West Texan. It's inherently West Texan. They harvest Soto plants out in the wild and are knowledgeable conservationists at heart. That's obviously something incredibly important to me. They shine a light on what makes West Texas special and unique and worth preserving and keeping it safe from exploitation. Right now, you can find Desert Door all over Texas, Colorado, Tennessee, and there's budding numbers in places like New Mexico, Arizona, California, and Georgia. Best thing you can do is to check out desertdoor.com to find where Desert Door is locally. Again, that's desertdoor.com. All right, if this is your first time listening, be sure to subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave one of those 5-star reviews. Go check out the merch store. There's plenty of cool New Slang stuff available, shot glasses and coffee mugs and t-shirts and magnets and stickers. That's also where you can pre-order my debut book. It's called The Lubbock Way. It's just me self-publishing, so it's going to be in limited supply. As the title alludes, it's about a short period within the Lubbock music scene. It's stories and it's thoughts about some of your favorite bands who have come out of this Lubbock scene within the last few years. All the links that I just mentioned will be in the show notes for easy access. Okay, let's get on to it. Here is Suzanne Santo. Yeah, well, I guess like obviously the natural spot for this to start off with is that you released the new record just this last Friday. August 27th. It's called Yard Sale. I feel like we got to start out with just an easy, slow pitch for you here. What's been the best thing you've found at a yard sale? Is there anything on the list where you go, man, I found this incredible, I don't know, whatever at a yard sale?
Oh, at a yard sale, a real yard sale. Oh yeah. Okay. Let me think for a second. Well, it's tough because some yards, they have this thing in Texas called Round Top, as I'm sure you know.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't quite a yard sale, as it's a convention of, vendors and stuff, but it feels like a yard sale. And since I moved here, I got a bunch of great stuff there. But growing up, man, I would just I'd go crazy with my grandma every week in the summer. But I'm thinking but back then it was little trinkets and things as a kid that I just obsess over, like a teacup or something, or, old cheap jewelry. I kind of liked that stuff, but I'm trying to think of a specific come to mind. I mean, in my last apartment in Los Angeles, I pretty much got most of my kitchenware from the yard sale down the street. They'd have one every month and these houses would all get together. And I pretty much inherited a butcher's block and all these pots and pans from someone that lived 10 doors down from me. And I always found that really interesting. I had all their hand-me-downs for my kitchen, and I didn't have to go buy stuff that it was just really convenient for me. Let me think, what did I get from them? I mean, I got so many books from this specific yard sale on my old street. I got this book called The Four Fish, and it's about the four remaining, basically how we've ruined the planet. And, the North Atlantic salmon that you buy isn't the same Atlantic salmon as it was 30 years ago. And I happen to love fishing, so I found this to be a real jewel of a discovery at this yard sale. I know that's pretty non-specific, but that's about, I didn't find an heirloom. I found practical, necessities for life, which is kind of what my album's about. But
right. Well, that's there's something just really great about a great yard sale, but there's also something super funny about it too. Cause you're just kind of going through someone else's stuff.
Right. Totally, exactly.
And there's this weird, understanding that, maybe it's one of those, you're slightly offended when you're having a garage sale and someone comes up, looks through it, and then doesn't buy anything. And you're like, well, hey, guys, come on.
Yeah. Listen, you damn fool.
Yeah.
Those coasters are important.
Yeah, exactly. Or you go to those garage sales where they have everything overpriced because it is still so important to them. And you're like, guys,
or they don't really want to get rid of it.
Exactly. It's that thing. Whenever as a kid, I remember we'd have a garage sale every once in a while, and it would basically be that tug of war between my parents, as far as, my dad just bringing more stuff out the house, and then my mom finding stuff and being like, no, this isn't for sale actually. And putting it back in the house. And there's just that constant going back and forth. Cause my mom, natural pack rat. And then my dad just kind of being, I've not used this in a week, so it needs to go.
No, that's a real thing. That's so funny. That dynamic between people that cohabitate is some people just never get rid of things, or some people get rid of everything. And you're like, well, I was using that, that whole thing. But I live alone, so I'm covered.
Oh, I hear you. Yeah. It's such an interesting thing about I guess as far as you naming this record yard sale, I've been thinking about that for a minute, as far as, in a lot of ways, it's it's very, very similar to that whole, going through someone's personal items. And as far as when we listen to records, and then of course on your end, as far as what's the essentials, what do I need to keep and what do I need to let go of? I find that title to be obviously just so apt for records in general, but specifically with this record, it's you named it properly is what I guess I'm getting to.
You. Thanks so much for saying that. This is one of the, I just, I got the name like right away, and I was like, that's it. I didn't waver. I didn't think of other things. That's what it's called. And obviously that's a luxury, because sometimes you vacillate on this stuff and can kind of go bonkers. But I'm really grateful that, like, I'm such a believer in the muse and the channel and all the stuff that comes through, like not being mine entirely or even remotely sometimes, because the words and music and ideas just come in and you're like, man, this is somebody else. I don't know where that came from. And so, yeah, Yard Sale, it was just like, boom, that's what it's called. All right, let's do the other stuff that involves releasing a record. It's really interesting.
Yeah, one of the things I've really found interesting about this collection of songs is, a lot of them started out on the road, or you worked on them out while on tour, and a lot of times a lot of artists they find it very, very hectic or overwhelming to be writing or creating on the road. They may get those ideas or something from seeing things through the van window or what have you. But it seems like a lot of these songs for you, they you were able to work on songs and work on getting material while out on tour. Has that been something that has just come naturally for you, or is that something that you've kind of just had to work on to be able to find a place to carve out time while, traveling and touring?
No, I mean, I've never been good at writing in transit. And oddly, when I was playing in Hozier's band, it was such a, transformative experience, but also really painful, to be in this top level, huge stages, but then feeling this devastation over leaving my own music and being like, man, I really, it's sort of like that. You don't really recognize something unless you step away. So I was saying that playing in Hozier's band had its ups and downs. It was amazing to be on these huge stages, but it was also really hard for me to step away from my own music. And, eventually it became an absolute necessity to write, because it was haunting me. And so I would write everywhere, backstage, in hotel rooms. When I had just a little time, when I had a day off, I'd just dedicate and really chip away at the record. And I didn't used to be like that. I used to be kind of precious about it. I only write at home, with my doors closed, and light a candle,
Mm-hmm.
But this was it was like survival or something. And I'm really grateful for it, because I needed to make this record. I need to always make music, and that's of my own. And I love playing with other people, but I know where my greatest strengths lie, and it's not being. I learned a lot, and I'm really grateful that the muse, or whatever you want to call it, made sure I didn't let myself down.
Right. Yeah. That's something I guess I've not really ever thought about when it comes to, any musician really who joins a big major act. That I think maybe we don't talk about how, for the most part, all these people, they have their own solo material, or they've been working on something that's a side project, or they write their own stuff, or there's something that they're doing that they're wanting to put out on their own as well. And, maybe that there has to be some kind of, something that happens, coming to terms, or coming to how do I keep doing what I want to do, but then also, be in this great band that is, you know, obviously successful. And like, you know, it's, I guess there's also that aspect of, you know, the outside looking in, everyone thinks that's the form of success is like you're in this giant touring band, right? But maybe like also at the same time you're going, I also want to, you know, I can't necessarily give up my own thing that I'm wanting to do at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, and like, to be clear, it was an incredible experience. Like, I am so grateful. That was like, it was life changing to be in that band, and I became a better musician and you know, listener and boss for my own project. But you know, I wasn't covetous or anything like that. Like, I was truly happy for my friend and his success, and I still am. But it was like, you know, it's like I was just wearing somebody else's clothes and they didn't fit right. And that, like, I just missed my own clothes.
Right.
And it was really, you know, an honest, you know, feeling and necessity for me to have to go back to my own music. And, you know, the thing is though, some people, that's their lifestyle. That's their goal, is to be that. And that's great. Like, I don't hate on that, you know, to be in other people's bands and to be a hired gun. And like, I'm a guitar player, I'm a keyboard player, I'm a drummer, like, great. You know, I need people like that. But you know, oddly too, the people that play in my band, are producer, engineer, singer, songwriter, and like very talented people. And I'm so aware that they're going to leave one day, as they should. And so like, my time with them is so much more precious because I know that they're going to need to do their own thing. And I support that. Like, I want them to. So I know that there's a expiration date on our dynamic at some point, you know, when they need to do their thing and I have to bring in, you know, other players. So it's a really, you know, I have so much respect for them, and I always did, but even more after I had that experience, you know, being somebody's hired gun myself.
Yeah, that's like obviously like a great take on that, because, you know, I guess, like, you know, wearing, as you're putting it, wearing someone else's clothes for a second maybe gives you perspective on, you know, the, how you can be a better, you know, band leader and a better bandmate and all those other little things that maybe sometimes we don't necessarily think about when you're the, you know, the lead singer in a band or something like that. This episode is in part brought to you by Charlie Stout Photography. Charlie Stout has long been a great buddy of mine, and for as long as I've known him, he's always had a good eye for ideas, for lines in a song, and notably, an eye for what makes a great photograph. Yes, we're gonna roll with that tried and true cliche about a great photographer having a good eye. But it's cliche for a reason. More often than not, it means it's true. Right now, I want y'all to head on over to charliestout.com to get an idea of what I'm talking about. While you're at it, go give him a follow on Instagram and Twitter at Charlie Stout. Right now, he has about 50 photographs for sale on charliestout.com, with a vast majority of those being landscapes and sky shots of West Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. The American Southwest, if you will. A lot of cacti and clouds, windmills and open roads, sunsets and stardust. He captures a lot of what I love about West Texas and these dry, arid climates. That's mainly that vast emptiness that can really make you feel small, the depth and the weight and the intensity, it's all in there. Right now, he's doing a special on his prints. Each week, he releases a new photo, and for 1 week only, that photograph is at a special introductory rate. For just $25, you'll get an 8.5 by 11. That's just about half off the regular price. For $75, you can get a 13 by 19, and for $110, you can get a 17 by 22. After the week, they go back to regular prices, which are still an absolute steal if you ask me. Also, just a pro tip, keep a watchful eye out on his Twitter. He's consistently posting one-offs, errors, and randoms on there that are for sale that are in the flash sale variety. Again, that is at Charlie Stout for Twitter and Instagram. Head on over to charliestout.com, grab a signed print, buy a record, get yourself some nature sounds and some nature shots. All right, let's get back to the episode. Obviously, we've kind of talked about, you were writing a bunch of this record out on the road. Is there like anywhere specifically that you felt like, it did the best, like the atmosphere, the place, the ambiance of a spot was just like, oh, I need to go back there and try and find more songs. Is there any place specifically that sticks out?
No, I mean, yes. I mean, I can remember a lot of these places where the song started. But I was like, I don't think it's the place as much as it's the state of mind and the, spiritual temperament. I'm there. And you can do that anywhere. But I guess sometimes the place reflects the song too. My song "Fall for That" I wrote in Ireland. I was in the middle of like a rigorous rehearsal schedule. We would basically rehearse from like 10 or 11 in the morning till the evening in the basement of this club called the Academy in Dublin. And the thing's probably like 400 years old, and like we'd be in the basement. And you come out and it's nighttime, and and I loved it, by the way. I'm not complaining. I had a lot of work to do. And then one day we got a call that we had like 4 days off, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go see Ireland and do some songwriting. And I rented a car and I drove to the coast of an area called Connemara, which is like, looks like another planet. It's so beautiful. I'd really never seen anything like it before. And I rented an Airbnb on a 3rd generation sheep farm. And like basically the address was latitude and longitude coordinates. And, I'm not going to lie. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with any sort of mysticism of like fairy folklore or fae. And, they talk about this energy in the lands in places like Ireland, I mean, specifically, and you could feel it. Like you can feel this demand or command of respect for where you are. And it was not lost on me. And I was by myself, so I was a little scared in this little cabin that was lit by, like, warmed by a fire. So I had to, like, keep feeding the fire if I wanted to stay warm. And I was so, like, primed for creativity. And this song developed out of my frustration with the continuation of picking up my fucking cell phone and looking at social media and getting mad and sad or depressed or like self-conscious, and like this rabbit hole effect on my psyche and my like cold bucket of water revelation of what was happening. And I was like, you dummy, look where you are. And you're looking on Instagram right now. Like, get off your phone. And I wrote the song "Fall for That" on that premise of like, I'm falling for it. I'm really messing up my time. I'm not using my time well. I'm not using my spirit well by this bullshit. And so I guess, the place offered me that experience, because I'd never been anywhere like that. I'd never really made that kind of like, all right, I'm going to rent this car and drive on the left side of the road, which was scary. I had like one moment where I was like, oh, like that could have gone south really badly, but I just made it. But yeah. I guess in that respect, to answer your question, that place gave me that song in that, in that experience.
Yeah, I think like we all kind of want to do that. Just like, hey, can I go rent like a cabin on like, on one of these edges of the world kind of places, and then just kind of like get lost. And it's maybe like a reminder, or maybe the in both a good way and a bad way, that like even you in a place that's, magical, that you're wanting to get lost in, there is that temptation of the phone, or the frustration I sometimes feel is like the reason why we end up like picking up our phone anyways. But maybe like the good side of it is that, if you treat it properly, you can, put the phone on mute and walk away from it and go and like discover something that's natural and just intake all the raw beauty of the place.
I mean, I'm with you on that, but I think that like this is an epidemic in our brains. I mean, a lot of people and myself, I've had times I have a pretty good handle on it now, but like aren't really capable of doing that. I mean, it's like losing a limb, or an identity, or, like to say, hey, go sit with yourself or take a walk in nature. It like sadly is a really tall ask for some people. And, I'm really aware of how sad that is. And, at the same time, it's like the hand that feeds me is the hand that, starves me. It's like, I also need it for my career. I can't not use it. So it's a really strange way to exist now. And like, you have to be your own police with it.
Yeah. I can't remember exactly where I heard this at, but what the difference between us and any of the other primates, throughout history has been that I guess like their example was like when the chimpanzee picks up a stick and uses that stick to like get ants out of an ant hole and then eat the ants. Like it's still a chimpanzee holding a stick, even though he's using it as a tool. For like humans, literally anything you pick up and you just like get a little bit familiar or comfortable with, it becomes like an extension of your hand. And that's the way humans think of it. And that's everything from a hammer to a cell phone to like, that's why when you leave the house, you're like, oh, did I forget my keys in my wallet? And like, because it becomes an extension of you.
Right.
And that's both like, amazing. And then that's also very kind of a daunting task to, sever that limb whenever it's necessary.
Well, the thing about this limb is it's a real altering. It's not a tool. I mean, it's like another life. It's like, it's a machine. It's not a natural vehicle for expression.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting. And, now, especially with our obsession with politics and the news and, every day you're inundated with something horrifying, but it's so consistent that it's changing, I think, our empathy, our sympathy, our self-worth, our self-awareness. And it's really also our ability to contain, like I found that the extension of the phone, if you will, on our person facilitates a real like watch me bleed culture, like rather than like when you have a problem, figure out how to fix the problem, you just go announce the problem and then get this like echo chamber of validation for your problem, but there's no solving it, like, and half the time it's like really annoying shit. You're like, oh my God, like, I can't believe you said that publicly. You should have kept that to yourself. There's far worse problems in the world.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely up the ante on tribalism, and that the echo chamber it's one of those where it's like, you're in an echo chamber and you're trying to explain it to, especially, I'm from Texas. And of course I'm trying to explain, to my grandparents or my grandmother, like, Facebook is not healthy for you because you're just like subscribing to these things that are feeding you all this stuff. And that's why you're miserable right now. That's why you're angry, because you feel like this is the only thing that's happening in this world right now. And, it's not. Like there's also good things happening, right. But you're stuck in this never ending loop of like they're feeding you what you like, basically, right? Or that you react to.
Yeah.
So it's
no,
yeah, go ahead.
It's really scary. I think it's like a collective narcissism just growing and growing.
Mm-hmm.
And it frightens me. It's also made me aware that like my inner circle's really small, you know, and I'm grateful for that. Like I've realized that, you know, privacy and intimacy specifically are so valuable. And, you know, intimacy is earned in a lot of ways, you know, I've really recalibrated and restructured the way I express myself for the most part the last year or so, because I realized like if I had an opinion and I like hopped on the, you know, fury train that everybody's been on and I said something on my social media, it would always come back with so much force, whether it was agreed upon or not, in ways that like were exhausting. I think were time consuming in ways that were really wasteful. And as I've retreated into, you know, my own life outside of my cell phone and the way my, you know, public image is expressed, and just, you know, enjoyed the smaller moments in life, I'm so much happier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Yeah.
I don't need to tell you how I'm feeling right now. Like if I need to, and it's, you know, pertinent to a subject at hand or my music, I feel like that's cool. But at the end of the day, like I do better, you know, talking to my mom or my friends or my therapist or myself when I have something to work out, and then, you know, go from there.
Yeah. Well, I guess like obviously, you know, you're a seasoned musician. You've clearly we're around the same age. We've come up in this age of social media, but how do you apply it to like, you know, a young songwriter who is coming up right now, who is kind of, I feel like a lot of young songwriters, a lot of young bands, they can, you know, do the whole thing where they're comparing themselves to the Joneses, right? And what do you think about that? As far as, you know, do you think it's harder, more difficult to be like a young songwriter who's also having to maybe deal with the images of social media?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, art is so hard in general. Like it's not like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, screenwriters, filmmakers, you know, showrunners, like that stuff is like dying before our eyes. It's like, you know, there's so much content that you don't even know what's happening. You like, remember when like everyone knew about a new TV show and like everyone knew, like,
Yeah.
you know, Smallville on the WB. And you're like, oh my God, everybody's watching Smallville like weekly. And you have to wait for it. And there's a different kind of anticipation. And now it's just like everything's so accessible that, and like, I mean, like light speed that, you know, and P.S. I'm a like eternal optimist, and I'm not bitter, but I am aware that the landscape is really untenable. However, I think that whatever, like wherever we're headed with the way that art is portrayed, you know, monetized and all that, released, at the end of the day, I think like maybe this is a wishful thinking, but that will sort of boomerang back to a place of great necessity for genuine work, for truth, not what's trending, not the BPMs that everyone wants to hear. You know, because it's like we've already done the most outrageous shit, right? We've already seen the most gratuitous sexual content, heard it all. But at the end of the day, when someone is expressing that God energy, that truth through music or through a book or through a podcast, even, I do find it to be so pertinent. And I personally am craving it. And I hope that there's more people out there that feel the same way. And, but it's not like, you're probably not going to get rich. I mean, you know, like take it from me. It is a long road. But you know, when you can find your value richness, which I feel so wealthy in that department. The other stuff I'm not sure about, but you know, it'll be great to see it unravel. You know, I'm very open to it, but I learned a long time ago, and I'm still learning now, that waiting for a thing to happen is usually going to put you in a weird headspace, probably get disappointed, and, like putting your attention and excitement into things that are worthy of that, rather than this like external happenstance of like stardom or something, or wealth. You just like I just put out this record that I'm so proud of. I think it's so beautiful. I hope people love it. And like, that's the best I can do. And I can have these experiences where I talk to you about it and tell you how excited I am. And I hope it does well. I hope it makes its way around the globe. But I don't, you know what I mean? Like I can only go so far. And then the other stuff is outside of my control. And that's where I have to like keep my head on straight, because, I've released a lot of records. I'm 36 and I feel great. I still feel hot, so I can like enjoy my life, but I also am not going to be like putting some sort of like time clock on it in a way that feels terrifying, because I've had that. I had that in my 20s. I was like, oh God, you're almost 30 and you haven't, quote unquote, made it. And like, that's a really scary thing to do to yourself. It's a really scary place to put your head. And I've had so many loving people come into my life to help me realign that in a way that like, how I can serve myself the best and serve others the best I can. And waiting for this like lightning bolt is not healthy. Doesn't mean I'm not super motivated and an overachiever and, wanting to make the best music I can possibly make. That's different. The other stuff, though, is really hard for any singer-songwriter that's coming up right now, or any writer or any creative. You are up against technology. You are up against the fractured brains of a society that like, can't hold their attention for very long. And there's these like, few and far between of like, purists. Not that you need to be a purist, but it's hard.
Right. Yeah. This episode of New Slang is brought to you by the Blue Light Live here in Lubbock, Texas. Blue Light has long been the heart and soul of the Lubbock singer-songwriter scene and has been a home away from home for some of Texas, Americana, country, and rock and roll's finest over the years. Talk with 99.9% of the songwriters who have come out of Lubbock and the Panhandle at large over the past 20 years, and they'll point to just how integral and necessary the Blue Light is. With live music and touring slowly but surely coming back, spots like the Blue Light are getting back to their usual ways as well. That means music every night of the week. Do you want to see that schedule? Well, I've got a few options for you. 1, go to their socials and give them a follow. That is at Blue Light Live on Twitter, at The Blue Light Live on Instagram, and of course by just searching The Blue Light Live on Facebook. They're consistently posting that week's lineup of shows, as well as those heavy hitters that ought to be on your calendar that are coming up on the horizon. 2, check out bluelightlubbock.com as well. There they have the full schedule, the cover charges, time, any of those specials that may be happening. While there, go check out their merch page. They have a wide range of hats, koozies, hoodies, sweaters, beanies, jackets, and so much more. You can, of course, get all of your merch needs when you go see your favorite band take the stage at Blue Light. Just ask the bartender and they will get you all set. Speaking of which, that's another great way of seeing who's playing there. Just go to the Blue Light. It's at 1806 Buddy Holly Avenue here in Lubbock, Texas. And of course, again, that is bluelightlubbock.com. I'll throw a link into the show notes too. Maybe I'll see you there. Okay, let's get back to the show.
I hope that makes sense.
No, I think like that's something that a lot of people struggle with. Is this, I guess like what I kind of related to is this idea of who you are going to be in the future, that we kind of all have like this idea of when you first want to be whatever you're going to be. And usually, around 18 or 19, you think of like, oh, I'm going to be this, an artist. I'm going to be a writer, a journalist or whatever. And then like you think it's just going to happen, or you tell yourself it's going to just happen one day. And, there's something very much to obviously, hopefully trying to manifest your dreams or whatever. But a lot of times what I've learned is, sometimes you just have to jump in, and like, it's not going to be perfect that first time you do it. And, it's all a work in progress. If just for example, on this podcast, like when I first started this podcast, I didn't know how to podcast, I didn't know like any of the stuff behind it. And of course I've gotten better equipment and hopefully gotten better with it, and found like, oh, this actually, you make mistakes along the way. And that's what any of this stuff is, is because if you don't do that, a lot of times you're not ever going to accomplish whatever that dream is, or whatever that goal was, whatever you wrote down on that to-do list. So yeah, go ahead.
The thing is though, it's like, you like, say you use journalism as an example. It's like, yeah, you could be one of the best, reporters on an event or an issue or a subject, but then you're up against the media company you work for, or, you know what I mean? Like there's all like, or as a musician, like you are tethered to a label that wants you to be just this, or, so I think, the way through is this singular individual, like there is no map. You can have some ideas of your sense of direction, but it's mapless, because it's changing so quickly. That's why podcasts are so incredible, is like, they're just real conversations. I get more inspired by listening to stuff like a podcast than anything, because obviously I don't know, go out on a limb here. You can't trust anything on the news. So, right. I don't personally never know what's real. And I always find myself disoriented and depressed when I really give my energy to that. So, in terms of dreams, there is like, you have got to have the fight in you if you want to do anything like in the creative arts, and I salute you. I see you,
Yeah, it's I think you can get let down very, very easily if you're just looking at, the number of streams or the number of downloads or whatever. It's very very easy to just decide to quit. But the perseverance is part of the process, of trying to, not necessarily, I don't know if I want to go into that whole, you have to struggle to make great art thing, but it's part of maybe becoming a better artist, not necessarily what your art is about, the content, but it makes you a better at achieving it or getting to that place of doing it. So, yeah. I wanted to go back to some of these songs on the record, because I just kind of felt like when the record was sent over, I would go and listen to some of these songs on repeat. And the one that I felt like I just kept on returning to is the song Mercy. That song right there, I don't know, like it's something with like the tones that you've captured, the way your voice like captures this very emotional release in it. And then of course, like the content of that song, I just really, I don't know. It's one of those ones that I just kept on going back to. Do you remember like where the seed of that song came from?
Yeah. First of all, thank you. I really appreciate that. Man, this one, there's sort of like this interesting, barometer for like, is this a good song or not? Or like, and I'll have like a physical reaction to it when I'm writing it. And this one was just like, I was overcome with emotion when I wrote this. I wrote it nearly in a night and I finished it the next day, but I was like crying and having these recollections of things I experienced as a kid, where I grew up in Parma, Ohio, which was a really interesting place. And I lived there till I was 13, and then my family moved to like this kind of like middle-class suburb that was nicer. And, I was in a whole nother area of energy, but Parma is really blue collar. And, I saw a lot. I loved my childhood. I mean, I was just like running around with no shoes on all summer, climbing trees, like, you know, making labyrinths. I tried to make a putt-putt course once. That was fun. But, you know, I also was like surrounded by like, you know, like the neighbor is an alcoholic. This neighbor has Alzheimer's and shows up at our door, and it's really sad. And she's looking for her daughter, and her daughter's right behind her, but her daughter's not very kind to her, doesn't understand, you know, the grace that you would need to care for this person. You know, the man up the street was a bad person, and we had a bunch of stray cats in our neighborhood, and he put out milk with antifreeze and ended up killing it was like a neighborhood cat. It was our neighbor's cat, but he was everybody's cat. And, you know, just like really fucked up stuff like that. And, you know, sex offenders and stuff. And like, but you get a sense for this darkness, you get a sense for kindness, you get a sense for goodness. And like, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I don't even know where that song came from. It just came from that, sitting and thinking about how I grew up and how it's shaped who I am now. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And nostalgia is such a beautiful thing, like that we don't really get to have so much when we're stuck in our cell phones, like actual life experience, you know, out in the wild, you know, having great joy or getting your heart broken or, you know, putting your feet in the dirt, you know, like being alive in the world. And, you know, for around the same age, like when we were kids, we were doing all those things. We didn't really, I mean, we had some video games, like we had Nintendo and Sega, but you know, like our lives consisted of, if you watched a TV show, you had to wait for it to come on, you know, when it was scheduled. You had to we prioritized differently. You had to entertain yourself. You had to learn, you know, you had to fall down. And I guess that's where that song comes from.
Yeah, there's very, okay. So that whole thing, like you have to wait and like be ready to see your TV show that you're really wanting to watch thing, you know. I remember as a kid, you know, just being obsessed with like Power Rangers, and my mom would record for me because I wasn't out of school yet. Whenever it would come on, we wouldn't be able to get to the house in time. So she would record for me on like these VHSs. And I remember being like, just feeling betrayed one day when I go to like watch some reruns and she had recorded over it with some Days of Our Lives. And that was just one of those like, and
no.
Yeah. So if you're like listening right now and you got your little bingo card of like just 90s things, you know, you probably got, God, you know, Days of Our Lives, VHS recording, Power Rangers. Yeah.
Or when you were like anticipating recording it and you couldn't wait to go home and like something got messed up and it didn't record. Yeah. And it's like just the most devastating. Oh, and then TiVo. Oh my God.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it was kind of one of those mind-blowing things of like, wait, what is this now? Okay, well,
you can fast forward commercials? No way.
Exactly. You mentioned, I wanted to go back to this in just a brief little thing here, but you mentioned like the last time, like when society just had these, like everyone tuned in. I felt like Lost was that way. Did you ever watch Lost?
Oh my God. You know what's funny? I watched Lost, but also like later. And there was this time in my early 20s where I was going to Blockbuster in Venice Beach. And I think I'd drive, but I would ride my bike sometimes too. And I would get the Lost on DVD and like, you know, and you have a couple days to watch it before they start charging you. So I would binge the shit out of it. But this is the true story. I never actually finished it. So I actually don't know what happens. I just know that everyone's like, it's awful. You're so disappointed. It's devastating. But like literally, that's all I know is that like everyone's mad.
Right. Yeah. For me, like I think the ending was okay. I'm not like angry at it anymore. Okay. But it is one of those where I remember watching season 1 and just like missing a couple episodes and just being like, well, I guess I'm not watching anymore until like, you know, it was a couple years later whenever I kind of did the whole similar thing of having to, you know, binge watch DVDs of season 1 and season 2 and just kind of playing catch up. But
when you got Netflix in the mail, like an actual DVD.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But, and then like with Netflix now, And maybe I bet you feel the same way as far as like any of these streaming apps. Do you feel like the fatigue of, or like the of just being overwhelmed by choices?
Yes, it's like, it horrifies me. I feel like, well, I've gotten better at having a plan, so you don't just scroll and scroll and scroll. Like, and I don't really watch that much TV. And my boyfriend and I just love to watch 30 Rock and Veep before bed, just like the crown jewels of comedy, and The Office. But for the most part, when there's something new, I kind of feel like a wounded animal, like not sure. Like I want to keep my distance, but I want to check it out, but I'm not sure. I don't want to get hurt again. I approach with great caution, making sure I don't get stuck in a situation I don't want to be in. Like, oh man, I put in 20 minutes and it was just terrible. So I've waited until I actually started like doing like research on shows before I scroll, and being like, oh, I like this writer, or I like this director, or I'm into fantasy and druids, so I'm going to watch this show. But I feel really fucked up about it.
I always love the suggestion that comes from a friend. And then they're always like, the first like 4 episodes, or once you get past those, and it's like, well, that's some commitment right there. Right. First off, and you're just telling me like half the show is just kind of slow, but then it gets good, you're not really doing a great sales job on here.
Right. But also people that know you that are like, oh my God, you are going to love this. Mm-hmm. And every once in a while they're right.
Yeah. I feel like the last show I got just obsessed with was True Detective. And that was just one of those ones where it felt like I was doing more reading and more, obsessing on the outside of True Detective, as far as like, the influences and the inspirations behind these people, and like their, all the philosophy attached to it. That's what I absolutely loved, was diving into that first season, especially. But yeah.
Well, sidebar, I don't know if you know this, but my boyfriend, that's his show. Like he created that.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah. He Nick Pizzolatto.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, I did not know that, but
yeah, that's so awesome. Well, but it's true. I mean, he is a mastermind, but like True Detective literally reshaped television.
Yeah.
Like no one put movie stars in TV shows. Like when Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey did season 1, like that was like a defining moment in TV. And, just this style of like kind of Shakespearean character building, like just you're so invested in these people, is really something. I'm so proud of him. Like he's incredible.
Yeah. Well, that's
it's really
obviously
funny.
Tell him, I'm the biggest fucking fan. Like, it's it did change television in that way. And, it's, if more than anything, I think like a lot of great art. I know like they've talked about this with the Coen brothers. It's like, you have to give the audience the benefit of the doubt that they can connect those dots. And, you don't have to spoon feed everybody everything all the time. And shows like True Detective, and like, I remember The Wire being like incredible as far as just going back and watching. I love those shows that the creative hand who's doing it is giving you the audience, you're smart too, and you can figure out what's going on, not be spoon fed all the time.
Well, and I think that spoon feeding speaks to this like fractured attention span of how we've been evolved and how we've been reshaped. And like, True Detective, I think HBO, I'm not sure what other networks, there's not many that do weekly episodics. Like they just give you here's 10 episodes of the season. And, before you know it, you've watched 20 other shows. And when season 2 comes out, you could give a shit. I think there's something to be said about the quality and the quantity and the way that we are exposed or invited to watch something and be entertained. But like at the same time, the just binging is, I mean, it's like anything that you would binge, it's probably not very good for you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of things, like just in terms of value and value systems, like I'm so glad people still buy vinyl. Like it's a lot. Releasing the vinyl I have for yard sale. I bought it. I paid for it 2 months ago, and it won't be available until November, which is a pain in the ass. But there's something about like, oh, you have to wait for it.
Yeah. It's very much you were relating it to being a kid, and you feel the dirt on your hands. You felt something when you're building that putt-putt golf course. There's something very, very just physical about a record and putting it on and making it a moment. And, the art is bigger and all that stuff, I think makes, that's the connective tissue in your brain as far as making memories attached to songs in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. Like, I still there's not much music these days. Well, no, that's not true. It's not like the volume of, say, like 90s grunge rock or 90s hip hop, like that brings you back, you're like, it's so specific. The car, the radio station, drive to school, all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I guess these days, just for myself, like in terms of music, the stuff that gives me that feeling, it's few and far between. So I listen to a lot of the same stuff, but I'm trying to get better at it.
Yeah. It's like, I very much understand that as, just a person. Of course, with me being a journalist, I feel like I'm getting always overwhelmed by, hey, listen to this record, listen to this record. Hey, listen to this record. And then of course you kind of you have to approach it more like a job, which I'm not complaining about listening to new music all the time. But what I've tried to explain to friends about records now that it feels like is that once a record's released, like you almost have to kind of give it up because you're working on the next thing already that's going to be out next week. And, it's interesting to see what ends up falling back in your rotation. And, some things that I've super, super loved, they end up like I'm 6 months later going, oh, I completely forgot this was out now. And there's something that's very sad about that. But, as you said, the things that you kind of go back to, the few and far between, they stick around for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's good, tailored. Everybody's different. We all have different things that we need that make us tick. And, I don't have the bandwidth to love everything. Who does? Jesus?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm super bad at ever ending these. So I'm just going to say, it's been wonderful talking with you this afternoon. And
likewise.
Do it sometime again.
Yeah, I love that. Well, if you're ever around and want to come to the show, please reach out.
All right, that is it for this one. Be sure to check out Suzanne Santo's Yard Sale. Go check out our presenting partners over at Desert Door, The Blue Light Live, and Charlie Stout Photography. Be sure to go visit the merch store, buy a book or a t-shirt or two. And yeah, I'll see you all next week for more episodes.